questions? Other questions before we get going? Okay, well, Lisa, I'll turn it over to you and then we'll have Becky lead the EIP part.
I just wanted to say I have so enjoyed reading your reflections this year. They're really, really thoughtful and in-depth, and all of you that have turned in your reflections had some really great insights about how you can use what you learned in your community learning project in your professional career. And several people had some really wonderful insights about diversity and how the different organizations are addressing that. And so I just really, really honestly enjoyed reading them so much. So I've put some comments on Canvas for you. And if you're complete, most everybody is. We're just waiting on a few. So if you haven't had a chance to turn them in yet, I emailed you so you know about that. And we'll enjoy hearing from everybody today. And we could either go alphabetically, or if someone likes to get it out of the way and go first, we can do that. I'll let you guys decide. Show of hands for alphabetical.
Angel, do you want to go first?
Sounds like we're going to do it that way. That's good. Okay.
Totally put Angel on the spot. So sorry.
That's okay, Kelly.
At this point, I expect it, Kelly.
Love the enthusiasm.
So we're just going to share like our project and what we did. Great.
Yes.
So we had the pleasure of working with Special Olympics, and instead of just being a volunteer like we had in the past, we came up, or the idea was planted, and we decided to take it on of creating training modules for the volunteers to kind of talk about behavior or sensory needs and kind of introducing that aspect of it. So we met with Ryan, who was in charge of the Hamilton County, and he kind of told us what the areas of need were. And I feel like we kind of spearheaded this, and we hope that there are a bunch of more modules that come after this, and hoping that Cincinnati Children's might get more involved and be more in person and maybe creating little bags of sensory needs or things like that. Angel, I don't know if I missed anything.
No, yeah, I think that's great. So our goal for creating these modules was to help coaches specifically. I think like just after talking to some people that had coached or maybe were involved in Special Olympics, it's you kind of get thrown into it without a ton of preparation. And so based on whatever lived experience you have, that's what you have to work off of in order to help the athletes that are on your team. And so the goal in creating the trainings was to kind of create a curriculum of sorts that would be available, maybe not mandatory, but available at least for coaches to be able to access in the event that they maybe had more sensory needs than they were familiar with or knew how to manage. And so, yeah, our specific modules were sensory needs, behavioral needs, and then just an overview of common diagnoses and kind of what to expect from athletes that have those diagnoses. So yeah, I agree. I think the idea of sensory bags is awesome. And I think like moving forward, just to allow space for more modules to be created would be awesome in coming years. Yeah.
I am just so excited.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say, I'm so excited that this came to fruition because we met with Ryan. He was new to Special Olympics he had been with Special Olympics, but new as a leader this year, and not really knowing what, was to come with COVID and in person. This was an alternative idea that was floated, and I'm so happy that it came to fruition because you were able to use your expertise to really come up with something that's very much needed.
My question was just, where are the training modules housed, and yeah, how do you see them getting to the coaches and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so they're just PowerPoints, and then I did a voiceover on them, and then Angel created some amazing quizzes to kind of test their knowledge to see if they access them. And my understanding is the training modules will be accessible to the coaches on a website. Angel, I'm not correct. That's how he sent us their trainings that we were able to kind of look through. So I believe it's just accessible if you're a volunteer or coach through Special Olympics, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think maybe that was still in the works of figuring out exactly how it's going to get rolled out to coaches, because it was like pretty new to use something that wasn't, I think they have like access to training modules that are like paid for through a third party. And so, I mean, even if they just had some kind of Google, Drive location where everything was stored that coaches could go in and access what they needed to access would be helpful. But
Yeah, I think it's kind of the one challenge we face is these are volunteers and they're doing it out of their free time and they don't necessarily have the time to watch the videos or the modules. That's why we did try to make them short and brief too and give you the basics and just some simple strategies. And then hopefully as the program again grows, you can do in-person trainings and have a lot of volunteers coming to them and coaches all at once would be, I don't know, something cool to think about in the future.
Are there any additional ones that were discussed that would be good, like thinking ahead to next year?
One he really harped on was bullying, which I think is a great topic, something I don't have too much experience with, like personally, minus what we learned in high school and middle school. But I think that would be a really cool topic to dive into next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think another one that he mentioned was like conflicts with parents and helping to manage parents. And so I think there could be a whole module devoted to how to manage parents in addition to athletes.
That's wonderful. Maybe it could be a hybrid thing next year when there's more in person.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
So Angel, I know you talked to me about Special Olympics because I do. I am a coach for Northern Kentucky. So when you talk about dealing with the parents, does Ohio or whatever county you're working with have a form the parents have to sign in regards to how you behave at functions? So I know Northern Kentucky does. The parents, these are the rules set. You're not going to yell at the coach. These are rules that you're going to follow and your athlete will follow. Like code of conduct, basically, and each parent has to sign it and then send it back to the coach or the state. Does Ohio or your county have that?
That's a good question. I don't know if that exists for Hamilton County specifically.
Yeah, he didn't mention it, and I feel like if they don't, they should, because it seems
we have a code of conduct. Every parent has to sign if their athlete is participating in that sport. So these are the rules we're setting down. If you don't follow them, then if the coach reports the parent, then the state steps in or the county steps in.
Yeah,
there's also a lot of room for not just that like conduct piece, but helping families that, are information around supporting the individual athlete to be more independent, and maybe that transition, kind of coaching around. They can have a conversation with their coach. They don't need to rely on their parent to have a conversation with the coach or that kind of thing too, which I think could all go into that. Would be a really cool recommendation you guys can make in addition to that.
And maybe recognizing when that line has been crossed and that it needs, to be positively countered. That would be great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that. I think that's a unique experience that we haven't had before, and I'm really glad it worked out.
Thank you. It was so much fun to work with them.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, everybody.
Who would like to go next?
I can go next for Ballet Moves. I guess I'm
Wonderful.
also volunteering
Thanks,
my
Maria.
fellow.
Or Kimberly.
No, you're fine. I guess I'm volunteering my fellow group mates as well. But Ballet Moves is a program through Be Well, and we did weekly or every other week classes for children with physical or cognitive disabilities. And we got to do ballet with them and help them do the different moves. And it was just super fun and super rewarding. And it even ended in a recital where the parents could come see their kids dance. And it was a really fun time. I know Donna, Amber, and Kelly also joined me on this. So if you guys have anything else to share, feel free to jump in.
I had a really great time. I thought it was so much fun. I ended up doing volunteering at 2 different places. So in the fall, I was at the zoo, and then in the spring, I helped at Ballet Moves, and I was buddied up with the same student for both events. So it was really cool to kind of see her be active and participating in both those things. And yeah, I just thought that the whole Ballet Moves program was so impressive. I ended up in the class where they just used the lift system. So both the girls in the class I helped out in needed assistance for walking. So one girl was in a wheelchair, and then one used a walker. And so we would strap them into the lift system and then get to like fly them around the room. And it was just really cool. And the kids had so much fun. So I thought it's just awesome the way they have adapted their system to fit so many different physical needs.
Yeah, I had a blast doing it. I wore me out. I was exhausted, tired after 3 hours, but it was fun. I really enjoyed the first couple of weeks we were there, that once the class was over, all of us that were in there went back into a room and discussed what issues we had and how to teamwork, how to get past it the next time in class. So we all just kind of talked with each other, worked it out, and then tried different things to calm the child down or get them to move and stuff like that. That was really fun, with all of us coming together and giving different suggestions.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, Jen Smith also came for one of our classes and kind of was able to like pinpoint some of the behaviors that I think we tried so hard to address. But when a kid's running around the room, that balance of keeping them safe versus not giving into that attention-seeking behavior. And it was just great to, like Donna said, we all collaborated and worked together as a team to keep the kids safe, but also have fun. Was really special. And just the socialization aspect of it, they were able to come together, and we did like free dances, and they could just run around the room together, and they were holding hands and all coming together in groups, which I think was just really magical to watch.
How great that you all got to use your own disciplines to kind of work together and come up with those ideas. Did you find that different people had different ideas based on your experiences and your, knowledge from your discipline, or was it different than that?
I can go first. I had never used a lift system with kiddos before, and Kim was able to show me how to like move their legs and facilitate it in a safe manner, which I do say like OT, we focus more upper extremity. So it was great to learn from her.
Piggy off that, as always, I'm learning tons from Kelly. I got to learn how to like facilitate some different arm movements during the dance. And one of our friends who did better with some like deep pressure to their arms, I got to kind of follow suit and learn from her and her ways of helping a child regulate and be able to participate from the class. So as always, learning a lot from Kelly too.
I just learned from all of you guys. You did great.
It sounds like it would be a great opportunity for a psychology fellow as well, when you're talking a lot about behavioral accommodations.
I also have to say Donna was so cool with like, I feel like from being a mom yourself and a mom with a child with a disability, like the way you interacted with the kids was so cool. They were such a big fan of Donna. I feel like they were always so excited when they had Donna as their friend for the day.
That really came through in your comments about it, Donna, too, on your reflection and the experience that you saw with the joy that it brought to the kids to be able to, be in a setting where they could really shine and just be themselves.
Thank you.
I enjoyed that. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions? Look at the chat. Okay. Who would like to go next?
I can go.
Great.
I'm sadly by myself today because Abby's baby mooning and living her best life. So good for her. I was actually participating in the babysitting classes, which are called Caring for Children and Youth with Developmental Disabilities through USED. And Steph was my leader, coordinator friend, help her everything. So Steph, if at any point I say something wrong or anything, just feel free to chime in. It is a hybrid training course and it consisted of 5 weeks at a time. So being completely honest, the first session that was during the fall time, I was more learning how the whole teaching was going to happen, how it worked out, how the whole experience was going to play out, because Abby and I taught the spring semester, I guess I can say. So we had 2 very different groups each time. And I say it's hybrid because it consisted of 4 Zoom meetings where we taught the class. We have a guidebook and a presentation where we go through what developmental disabilities are, every kind of them, at least the most common ones, and how to address behaviors, what to expect, because there is like a general course for babysitting, but there is non-specific to children with disabilities. So this was kind of that extra for the kids, well, for the teenagers, young adults that wanted to help out in that process and be part of babysitting children with developmental disability. So that was pretty nice. And on top of that, we had 1 session that was live where we were doing actual babysitting of children. So me, Abby, Steph, and Erin, we were actually supervising our participants while supervising the kids. It was very fun. Like, obviously we participated as well. We weren't leaving them to like just go crazy with the kids or whatever, but it was very fun to see how the different groups interacted with the kids as well, and the difference in their comfort. I loved the live experiences. I wish there was more of it, but that might be just my opinion, because I do really love being with the kids in that big room in the 3rd floor where we have the climbing walls, we have the zip line, we have the slides and the swings and everything. So it's very fun for the kids. And we also had a variety of children with developmental disabilities. We had the 3 siblings with Fragile X the first time. So Brock, Ty, and I forgot the 3rd one's name.
Drew.
That many of you already know. And the second time around, we had 6 kids with autism spectrum disorder plus ADHD, with ranging like very different widespread in the spectrum as well, which was very, very fun. And it was interesting for the participants to see what a visual schedule is like. So we taught them how to use a visual schedule. One of our kids was nonverbal and had the PECs, or well, the pictures, and he was able to interact much more and be less anxious and scared once he had the actual, his own picture assembly with him. So it was very fun to see them interact with the kids, and for myself, it was a very good learning experience as well. I also worked on my fear of public speaking by being a teacher the second time around, which was nerve-wracking, but I appreciate the experience. And yeah, I guess like to add to that, just the struggle really with the class was mostly finding participants. So we did struggle kind of spreading the word and getting people to want to participate in it. So with Steph, I was talking on ways that we could possibly do that as COVID restrictions lessen, and maybe finding a way of making maybe less Zoom classes, kind of compact that so that we can spend time looking for people in high school that want to participate. We're kind of still seeing what we can do with that, but I really would like to spread out the word a little more, more personally, more one-on-one, instead of just putting out a flyer or expecting the school to put it on a wall and just wait for somebody to see it. More hands-on in that sense, so that we can get more students in, because it is a very interesting course. And I think there is a growing need for people who are comfortable and willing to babysit children with developmental disabilities as well. So
These days, there are a lot of people find babysitters through some of the online networks. I wonder if there's any opportunity there to be able to connect up and have, you know, certification or, that they've been trained in kids with disabilities? Has that something that you've ever looked into, Steph?
It has been. We've sent out the flyer through like the different Facebook moms groups. And that's where a lot of those places are through. We actually had one of our fantastic genetic counseling trainees who did her service in the fall semester compiling the contact information for all local high schools and colleges. And it was a lengthy Excel document. And we sent it out, and we definitely got interest from a school in Kentucky for the second round. So I'm hoping if we continue to send that out to those different high schools, they'll get the word. But it is just a really tricky way. It's really tricky to try to get high schoolers to do anything, I think, that isn't kind of affiliated with their high school. And I know that when we did this in person, they would come in person at Cincinnati Children's and look like deer in the headlights. They were terrified. And so, yeah, we'd love to have any other ideas where to do that. We've done this at Mason High School once, and that's where we got the most people because it was kind of co-led. It was like a service project for one of the students who had previously taken it, organized it for her fellow students in one of her clubs. But it is just really tricky.
I wonder about volunteer services here at Children's, because those are kids, who volunteer because they're interested in health professions. And being able to say that you got this training, if you're applying, to college and you want to go into one of, the health professions.
That's a really good idea, Lisa. We haven't reached out to them before. We should definitely do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of
I work for 2 different babysitting companies that are kind of like that. One of them Safer Sit, and then also Juggle, if you've heard of those. So I do have the contact information for those people. If you could, because we can select, like we make our profile and we can select what certifications we have, like CPR and everything like that. And then you can put description of I've worked with kids with disabilities and so forth, but they could definitely put like offer training and then have that as a certification that sitters can click in their profile, and families definitely look at that because
that would be really helpful, Kelsey, because this training is actually based off the Safer Sit curriculum. But that would be really helpful if we could kind of circle back to them. So I'd love to have that contact.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Elodie and Abby did great though. They're great teachers, and we all got a kick out of Brock. I feel like Brock needs to come to Len graduation because he is kind of the celebrity of Len. And yeah, so we had a lot of cute kids, and I know the families were very thankful. And the best part about this second iteration in the spring was that the participants actually like gave their phone numbers and emails to the parents and said, call me. And that's what we kind of want to set it up as like a matchmaking kind of thing. So we're really excited about that.
And I think you could see how important it was to the families, because having that sort of respite and being able to count on a babysitter that has the right skills for your child would just relieve so much stress and anxiety around being able to do just the normal things that parents have to do. So it's such an important program. Okay. Well, we've got Sam, or we have Maria, or Megan. Okay.
This is Maria.
Awesome.
I did my project at the YMCA with an adaptive swimming lesson. And so I went every week on Saturday mornings for like 2 or 3 hours. And I think my main responsibilities were to just get in the water and help these kids like go through these swimming exercises. And I'm not like swimming certified, like I'm not a lifeguard or anything like that. But I think the point is to just help these kids get used to the feeling of water and like dealing with all those sensory issues, while also just doing something that we take for granted, I think. And so it's kind of like a really cool intersection of providing parents and kids with community while also being present in normal community while also participating in a rec activity. And also for me, providing support to these families. And one of these cool instances was this mom comes in and she had a complicated medical history and she had like some memory problems, and she was going to attend her child's upcoming IEP meeting and kind of like didn't even know where to start. And that was really a cool way for me to give her some information in a really low stakes environment, more casually, and say like, okay, you have the right to these things in these IEP meetings, and this is what you can say, and then they can help accommodate your child. And it was just really cool. And the kid would clearly benefit from these accommodations, but regardless, the swimming lessons really, it was just like a different way to approach sort of like a therapy activity in a way that's not like a therapy. And also it gave the parents an hour break. So that was also nice for them just to sit back and relax. So yeah.
How many kids were in the program this year, Maria?
Let's see. We had probably like 6 sessions, each about 40 minutes back to back. So let's see. I would say maybe 20 kids-ish, depending on the week overall. And then they range from ages like 2 to 3 to the oldest we had, I think, was 28.
Wow. And how many volunteers were there?
I was the only one from our cohort. Then I think there was maybe a Lend Light student, and then some other volunteers, like people who were employed by the YMCA who helped.
I know they
So
have a
about 4
great
people.
need for volunteers. Like they really need. It's a very popular program.
It was so fun. I actually enjoyed it. Like it was therapeutic for me because just to like wind down, get in the water and have fun. So.
And how great that you got to be there in person.
Yes. Yeah. If you like mornings, I would definitely recommend it for anyone next year.
I can go next.
Okay. Thanks, Maria.
So I did volunteering at the Cincinnati Art Museum. And so I was volunteering for the Sensory Saturday initiative, which unfortunately for most of the fall semester, we had one in person and then everything went virtual until February. So to fill that virtual time, the coordinator, Sarah Burkhofer, was wonderful, and she still wanted to be providing activities and kind of hands-on things that families can do at home, even though the museum was shut down. So we partnered with Visionary and Voices to create at-home projects for over the holidays. So another volunteer, not from Lend, went in and recorded artists creating ornaments and paper plate kind of activity crafts. And she recorded them. I kind of edited all of the videos and created voiceovers for them. And then we made accessible storyboards for how to get the project done, like piece by piece. So social stories to get that done. And so during the fall semester, it was almost all virtual. And then finally we got to come back into the Museum for Sensory Saturday in February and March. And being in person was so great because we actually got to see all of the kids and all of the families. I was one of the people that kind of helped set up different stations in the museum for families. So areas where they can stop and put their hands on things, touch certain pieces of art and certain things that they would put together for them, and then create quiet spaces in the museum. So like chairs and little puzzles and things like that for kids who kind of needed a break from the actual activities that going on in the museum. And I also was able to like meet and greet families as they came in and kind of give them the lay of the land. So I got to like actually see everyone coming in and meet all of the kids and meet all the families. And I was also their last point of contact on the way out. So I was the feedback person as well. So how'd it go? Did you like it? Are there things you didn't like? Are there places that were loud in the museum that we didn't have marked on the map that could have been reverberant? What could we have done better? So it was great. And Sarah is wonderful to work with, and she is so open to feedback. It was so collaborative, and although mostly virtual, in person was wonderful.
Did you have any feedback that you shared with her?
A lot of it was, there were pieces of the museum that were louder. So we had marked like where it's more reverberant, but there were actually like in the group areas where the activities were tended to be really loud, because that's where a lot of families ended up like grouping up. So a lot of the feedback was, it wasn't necessarily marked on the map. We would have put our sensory headphones on going into those situations had we had known. So just kind of like family feedback, and things that they had said.
Well, I'm really glad that it got to be in person this year. It's definitely, last 2 years has been even more so not being able to be in person. So that was great. And it's good that you got to pair up the visionaries and voices, because that was an idea we talked about with Sarah early on. And I'm really glad that worked out, so that you didn't have like a long period of limbo not being able to help people.
Yeah, and the way that they approached that project was so interesting, because I would have never thought to like videotape it, voice over it, give a picture schedule, give written it, like every different modality, there was an instruction for everyone who could have used them.
It's very cool. Very neat project. Good collaboration between those agencies or organizations. And then Megan, I think we have you. Yes, if you'd like to share about Autism Society.
Yeah, so I was at the Autism Society of Greater Cincinnati, and my supervisor was Hadia Khan, who was a past LEN trainee. She's amazing. If you don't know her, you should know her. So my experience was a little different, because I was a part of different support groups for caregivers. So I kind of had a more passive role, where I was joining these support groups and not having on my provider hat, and kind of just sitting back and listening to these caregivers and their stories. And the best part about it is that there's like a wide range of families that would show up week to week. So some families are seasoned veterans who've been a part of the autism world for many, many years. And then you have some families who come in with a fresh diagnosis, who need resources, or honestly just want to vent. And that's what I loved about the support group, because there was no real agenda. There was nothing like Hadia or anybody else who was leading had to like make sure they hit during this hour and a half. It was kind of just, hey, we're just here to listen, maybe supply resources or support in any way that you need, but feel free to take this time to vent, let out any anger or sadness or frustration or happiness or joy, whatever you are feeling. Bring it to the table. And if you don't want to share, then you don't have to share. So I love that it was kind of low stakes. There was not a lot of pressure. You could have your camera off. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it was primarily virtual, which was very beneficial, because we had a lot of family members from out of state. So we had people from, one day was Seattle. We have a family in Canada. There's another family in Australia that likes to pop in. So it was pretty well unified across the world, which I thought was really helpful, and just another bright spot about the organization, and how it's not necessarily just for those in Cincinnati, and that it can reach a broader population as well. And I also liked how they had different support groups for different individuals that may need extra support, or support that may look different from like the general family population. So they had Black and Brown families. They also had support groups for adults with ASD specifically. They had a teenager or adolescence group where they can come together and work on social skills. So basically there was a niche for everybody that needed something. And Hadia does a great job of providing a ton of resources, sometimes a little overwhelming for some who are new, but a lot of times they'll just circle back in the next week and be like, oh, what did you mention again last week? So it is all good and informative. But that is something that Hadia and I have talked about, and along with some other individuals who were there on their own agenda. I know there was a social worker there who is working with the Cincinnati Police Department on how to appropriately handle calls from families who have children with ASD. And that's something we kind of talked about, how sometimes it could be an overload of information, especially if you're just coming to vent. Maybe you don't want to hear all of that at first. So that's something that we tried to balance throughout this past year, I guess, of trying to figure out where is that point where it's enough information for now and that we can revisit topics later in other sessions. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
This is so fantastic because it's the first year that we've had Autism Society as a CLP option. And I'm so glad it worked out so well. And it's really great to have it come full circle from Hadia, as you said, being a Lend Fellow to, now being a project director there. So it's fantastic. I'm curious how people from other countries learn about Autism Society of Cincinnati.
So how Hadia explained it, or how she explained it to me, is that they'll just Google like autism or Autism Society and not look at the website, seeing that it shows for Greater Cincinnati. So it's almost like they're stopping by mistake, but then they join and then they stay. So that's how it's been for the past couple of people who've been out of state or out of country. But
what a happy accident.
Yeah. The word is spreading.
That's incredible. That is the good power of the internet, isn't it? Oh, thanks so much, Megan. I'm really glad that you had a good experience, and we'll definitely have this as a CLP option next year.
Thank you.
So I think that's all of our option 1 folks, unless I've missed anyone. Please speak up.
No, James, I think needs to go,
James,
right?
yeah, James, you even said so.
And
I have the
were
memory
together
of
for part of
Dora
it.
the fish.
That's okay. I also had switched early on from the EI to the community leadership, so that might be why. I did Zoo Troop with Ty, Drew, and Brock, so I had all 3 boys. Well, I'm doing or hanging out with Brock right now, so I haven't finished with all 3, but in a few weeks I will have seen all 3 of them with Zoo Troop, which is pretty fun. But Zoo Troop is an adaptive program for kids with developmental disabilities at the Cincinnati Zoo. So there's 3 kids, and they come in and we do all the same activities as the other Zoo Troop programs, but we have like a larger space to accommodate them. And there's multiple people there providing kind of one-on-one or two-on-one behavioral management support for the children. So it was really great because I learned a lot from some of the other people that we were paired with. So I did a lot of work with an OT from UC, working with Ty and with Drew. So I learned a lot about like different sensory tools to use with kids, or how to like apply like deep pressure on hands to help calm them down and things like that. So I had a blast. I mean, I got to go to the zoo every week and see all the cool animals and go for walks around the zoo. So it was a lot of fun and really rewarding just to see the kids like have so much fun looking at the animals and doing their crafts and activities.
And like a couple of the other programs, this is the first year in a couple of years that it's been happening and in person. And I think it's been larger than 3 in the past year, so it's probably transitioning back and a little bit smaller. Did they say anything about plans for next year?
So they're going to try to keep doing it next year as well. I think they're trying to figure out what space they'll have, because they have been doing it in one of the larger conference rooms, but now that things are starting to come back from the pandemic and there's different events being held, I don't think they quite have the same claim to that space as before. So they may need to use a smaller classroom, and it kind of depends on which children are enrolled and what their needs are and whether or not they could have more kids.
That's
I was
really
going to say I did
fantastic.
Zoo Troop as well with James for one of the sessions, so I wasn't able to make all three of them. But my participant was wheelchair bound and also had a visual impairment, so it was really interesting to see how to help her remember to bring her own tray, because like the first week we didn't have her wheelchair tray, and it was so hard to balance crafts, projects, activities in her lap on my hands. And even just like simple changes like that, or with the animals, she often couldn't see them, even when we like went right up to the glass during our zoo walks. So just bringing a phone and or the iPad and like doing live videos and trying to help her be involved as everybody else and not run over people with her wheelchair, because it was a motorized wheelchair that she sometimes had a lot of fun with in the room. And as James said, trying to work with his participants who could get up and move. So I did that for a part of mine. The other one I did was Be Well, which is also trying to come back from the pandemic. So we haven't had as many events and they're still trying to grow and get numbers. And so a lot of my stuff with Be Well this year was actually behind the scenes. So what they've been finding is that they have like a large number of autistic children. And so we feel like we're getting out to a certain population and not necessarily getting that variety and variability of diagnoses and individuals and backgrounds that we would like to see within Be Well. And so one of the things I was trying to help them with as part of this was the background marketing and trying to figure out how can we promote, what can we do, what groups are there, and how to do it. And children's is actually limiting the number of Facebook groups and media presence, and they're restricting it significantly. So they wouldn't allow us to have our own Facebook group, and they're not allowing us to update the website for Be Well because they're like going through website changes. So it's one of those like, okay, what can we do? Who can we reach out to? So I was able to use a lot of my Facebook groups that I already had, and I've spent a lot of time on Facebook for work, which my husband's like, yeah, sure, that's funny. I'm sure you're doing volunteer work and work right now. But it's been nice because I have parent groups that I'm a part of, and then I also have physician groups that I'm a part of and mom groups. So it was nice to be able to see the response from like everybody where they're like, hey, I can provide this to my own practice. And I'm like, oh, this is great for this kid. Or this mom's like, oh, okay, we're not interested in, this activity that's coming up, but do you know if you're doing anything like X, Y, or Z? And so the other thing that Be Well is doing for you guys to keep an eye out for is they're transitioning to the active.com website and trying to like centralize where their signups are and what to do. So this year was a lot of kind of like revamping, re-imaging in some ways, and really trying to figure out, okay, as more things are open, as we have larger groups, as we have more people, what can we do to get those numbers and get that word out there to more individuals? And what we were finding is that I don't know who runs most of the Cincinnati Children's Facebook pages, and they're not answering me. And it's so hard because I send so many messages and I'm like, I can't send mass messages to departments because I think that would just piss everybody off. Shh, hey, quiet, honey. Sorry, I also have a sick kid at home. Stomach bug hit my house again. So I don't know if anybody else has ever had anything like that, or just like how to reach out to people and how to get more people to respond to you when it's like I've sent numerous Facebook communications, trying to post, trying to find emails. And when we have such a large organization and a large group. And
Nicoletta, I think so Amy does a lot through our Kelly O'Leary Facebook, but I find like that working with communities and systems is sometimes not working with disability communities and systems. It's working with people who don't speak our language. And I don't find that marketing folks quite understand what we try to do because we're not research or we're not NIH funded or all those things. And so, get with me and I'll try to help because it's been a difficult thing. Hi, buddy. Over the course of my 11 years here. And yeah, we try really hard, but it's like, gosh, man, we're trying to just help the people and get this out to the community. And there is
And I've gotten a few
definitely
things, which has been nice. And so
Yeah.
I've gotten a few responses, and we're trying to even reach out to like the spine center or chronic kidney disease or something else, because I think one of the things that we didn't always think about with Be Well before is if we send it out to those types of groups too, I think we'd still be able to get some of the appropriate participants for this. And it's something that was often forgotten about or kind of put on the wayside potentially in the past, since there is such a focus within DDBP and MOB building itself. Sorry.
That's a
again
great
for my
idea to
son.
reach out to some of those other clinics. Like I'm thinking like the rheumatology as a possibility. So maybe working with PT to say, who are the clients that you're serving? And it seems like PT, although that maybe that's already happened, could be an avenue, and pushing it out to a lot of diverse different groups, and OT as well. But those are wonderful observations, Nicolette. I'm glad you got to do both. That was really good. So we have CLP option 2. We've got Pat and Christy and Jason to share their poster presentations with us. And I think the way that this could work is if you would decide who wants to go first, and then you could just share your screen to share your poster presentation.
I can go first.
Okay, thanks, Pat.
I don't know. Here, let me take that. All right, is that better for everybody?
I can hear you. That's good.
Okay. Let me do the share. Screen. Okay. Okay, can everybody see it? Can everyone see it?
Yes, Pat.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, I have to move you guys over on one side and then move. Okay, I did my project with, it's called The Point, and it's in Northern Kentucky. And I did it because my granddaughter, I had been searching for some facilities that offered socialization, and I really couldn't find it in Northern Kentucky. I knew about the Ken Anderson Alliance, but there were a lot of stipulations. You had to go on waiting lists for some outings, et cetera. So when I called Northern Kentucky, it was just perfect. It was perfect for us. So when I went over there, I had already been taking her there on Wednesday evenings for their social events. And so but I didn't know a lot about the rest of the organization. It is absolutely phenomenal. So I want to start by saying that this lady right here that you see the picture of, Judy Girding, is absolutely fantastic. She has been doing this for over 60 years. And she was driven to it because her son, at 18 months, he was born with Rubinstein, and is it Tabby, okay, syndrome, which is a genetic condition or genetic based diagnosis. And he is now 67. So if that tells you how long she's been working on this, and the majority of the time she's been the CEO, she is a ball of energy. And that's why I wanted you to see this picture. She's still the CEO and president of it. But when you visit with her, what really took me back was that the passion she had over 67 years ago, she still has it. And so I just kept looking at her and was thinking, how do you keep a passion like this? And it doesn't dwindle. The light doesn't go out, or you don't become a little disenfranchised. She is as excited. And when you sit down and talk with her, it's absolutely phenomenal. So what happened was they got started because they found out that in Northern Kentucky, there was very little back in the 1960s, actually late 50s, early 60s, very little as it related to education for children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. and then also for after high school, and then also for their socialization. So these individual parent groups started forming, and then around 1972, they kind of all merged together and came to form what is now The Point. And so their main focus was like on fundraising, on volunteerism at the schools, because it was all on education. But as they started getting older, then they started looking at, well, what's going to happen to our kids now? So transitioning them to be able to have meaningful and purposeful lives after they left high school. And I mean, it has just been nonstop. I've never seen somebody with the ability to access funding and access the right people, but Judy does. Judy is able to do that. So one of the first things they did was they opened up what was called the Point Restaurant, and that allowed for employment for people with IDD. And then right after that, they ended up opening up with that transition to the Point Coffee Shop. But then they were also opening up, it's called the Point Cleaning Company, the Point Laundry Service. And these are actually fundraisers. I mean, not fundraisers. They are financial producing businesses that actually then pour money back into the Point. So just absolutely great strategy. And so their mission is, and right here it says, to provide IDD to provide opportunities to people with IDD to reach their highest potential educationally, residentially, socially, and vocationally. And they do it with so much sweetness. You know, every person I talked with, every person I've interacted with, it is so genuine that they truly, truly care for the people that they actually work with. And in addition to the social events they hold every week on Wednesday evenings, they also offer bowling and other activities, baseball, basketball, what's some more? I don't think it's football, but they're more physical activities. So to keep people moving is what their focus was. And then they also offer what's called themed dances. And those themed dances are actually attended by over 100 adults with IDD. It is packed, and they have a DJ and they're dancing. And my granddaughter, who went just last week, she had her first dance with a gentleman, with a young man. They were holding hands. Of course, you could drive a truck between them, but she's smiling from ear to ear because that's just how pleased she was with this. So another service they provide besides the enterprises, which actually hire people with IDD, they also offer case management and residential services. But I wanted you to see, I apologize for moving this. These bars are in the way, and so I'm so sorry. The bars are in the way and I can't seem to get them to move here. Wait a minute, there we go. All right, is the residential and case management services. Are you all able to see the buildings that are here? The building on the left is an apartment building for people who are more independent. The building on the right is very similar to all of their residents. Judy, how on earth did you get funding for facilities such as this or houses that turned out this nice? And she said, I believe either do it right or don't do it at all. So these houses are absolutely phenomenal. There's 5 to 6 and sometimes there's 3 to 4. And there's a total of 16 for Northern Kentucky. Then also they offer vacations. So they're short-term and longer-term, like vacations for people. There are also educational opportunities or training, and then also transitional programming for youth, for adolescents. It's called Peers for Young Adults, and then also Peers for Youth, which helps them to transition from high school into adulthood as it relates to socialization What is appropriate socialization? What's appropriate relationships? What are healthy relationships? So I do have a handout for all of you that kind of puts all of this together, including the contact information. It is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope everybody gets the opportunity to see this. I wish we had something like this in Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's just incredible. So Judy has to be in her late 80s at this point.
Well,
she looks like she's about 35 or 40 in the picture.
She's, I think she told me she's in her early 80s. And that's why I said I wasn't going to say her age because I didn't know, but I definitely know that she's like in her early 80s. And she actually has something written on the wall that she wrote. And that's why I didn't include it in here because I didn't get permission for. But it's her quote on her wall that she wrote says, God doesn't make mistakes. He strategically introduces individuals into our lives to make us better people. That is her. You know, she's just absolutely phenomenal. That lady knows how to tap people with money that my eyes were just bucking. I was like, oh my God, how do you find people who are not only willing, but able to give like $1 million? But she has done a lot of work over many decades, and kudos to her for doing it.
What a work of a lifetime. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you feel that this would be a good option for direct service for next year or future years?
Oh,
that we
yeah.
should explore?
Absolutely. 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 Kentucky, and that's what I said to her. I said, when you kind of go over the river to Kentucky, it's almost like you're moving into a whole different climate, not weather climate, but it's a little bit more laid back, a little bit more accepting. I think it would be a great opportunity for next year. Either way.
Hey, Pat, just to piggyback off that, I didn't know your granddaughter was there at the last dance because Maddie was there.
Oh, she was?
Sports themed dance. Yeah, she was there also. So yes, there was, I don't know how many adults there with disabilities. So some of her kids, friends from softball and swimming, everybody there for Special Olympics. The other thing I know the point does is when Maddie was, I believe, in middle school, at that time, they would actually look over your school's IEP and give you suggestions. If you wanted a rep from the point to come to your IEP meeting, they would do that for free. Now I believe they charge $75 for them to come to an IEP meeting or something like that. But they're an awesome advocate for IEPs also. Just to look it over, give you suggestions, what might be, they try to work with your child. And then for the peers group, I know there is a fee for that, and they try to give scholarships so you don't have to pay. So I know there's a fee for the peers program. We haven't gotten Maddie into that yet just because of her training for nationals. It's on the same night. And the parent has to go also. So as the adults with disabilities are in one room learning whatever they're talking about that night, the parents stay also for that 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And they tell the parents what we're talking about. So you kind of have an idea on the car ride home how to converse with them also.
But they, up until actually now, they've been virtual because of COVID. And I think they're just starting to relook at coming back together, because I just got a message that they are going to start like job readiness, job preparation. So I have not met one person who was hired by this organization that I thought, where on earth did you get that person from? They are all phenomenal. And there are fees. I think there are fees attached to most of their activities. But I've never seen such dedication, commitment, and genuineness, transparency, everything you're looking for to feel comfortable with that your child or your family member is with them.
This is so great because part of, the purpose of the CLP option 2 is to bring resources back that people might not be aware of. And this is such a completely, comprehensive program that addresses so many needs, real life needs.
All I can say is go to the parties. I have a blast. I didn't make it to the last one, but we went to the Halloween one and the Christmas one, and they have a DJ there, and it actually brought tears to my eyes because I thought this is how they should be able to interact no matter where they are. Not just because they're around people that they're comfortable with, but they should be able to go to any type of venue and have a great time. But they had a phenomenal time because they could be who they are, because they were around kindred, like a kindred heart, kindred spirit, because they all understood one another. So if you ever want to have a really good time, go to one of the parties. I think I drug Andrea out with her sister for the Christmas one. Yeah. So it's great.
Well, thanks for pulling all this information together, Pat, and sharing everything, your experiences. It's wonderful. So Jason, or who would like to go next?
I can go. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
So I'm Jason. You all know me. I don't know why I'm introducing myself. I guess I've been used to doing that recently with some of the stuff. Because I work at a service agency, and while every service agency is different, they sort of have similarities in some ways, and also they can be a little bit competitive with each other. So somebody coming from another service agency, I don't know, I just didn't want to make it seem like I was fishing because I was trying to do it for my work life. So what I did was also because I was interested, because it's something that impacts all agencies in some ways and how they're running, is understanding what Hamilton County Developmental Disability Services did, since they have such a broad range. And it's also something that's only unique to that. Ohio's is one of the only systems that has a county board system, and the county board systems are run individually. So they're supposed to have somewhat similar things, but they're also independent in some way. So I'm gonna now show you my PowerPoint. I think this is okay, yeah. I want to make sure I didn't have the wrong one with the. So the board system was developed in '67, and each county has some responsibility for providing home training, preschool development classes, community classes, sheltered workshops, or it could be some employment things, because a lot of sheltered workshops are being phased out, adult activity centers for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but needs have changed. And so the state had different kids. So Hamilton County has sometimes done different things, and the board has switched. It was called the Board of Retardation until I think about 2009. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me look at the chat. Okay, cool. Now they with the federal law changes, I believe, they serve about. So they don't do direct services anymore. They do service management, which I can get into a little bit later, and they do that for about 8,000 people. And they do that, or around more than, I don't know why they have two different numbers, but they say at least every year they support around 7,600 people. And so their mission is, and I think it's cut, at least it's on mine, it's cut off a little bit. We're guided by some of these sort of core things, which, agencies sort of have that, but it's important to understand where they're going and how that fits into their programmatic. So innovation, stewardship, collaboration, respect, equity. They want community integration for people with disabilities and promote opportunities to live. So those are some of the things they do. Again, they also, as well as working with people with disabilities and their families through the lifespan, they collaborate with 1,000 certified service providers or individual service, and also individual providers to make sure they have accreditation and training, and they sometimes give out funding to different groups. And then they also have, so you can see that the different groups that are serve their children, adults with disabilities, family members. They have disability advocates, especially people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they have whole programmings around that, as well as general things that they do. They do they work with independent providers and agencies. Some of the things they do is eligibility for services. So if you need to, knowing that if you need to see that you qualify for something, or if you move to here later, they do service and support administration, which means that they are the people you meet with yearly, and you go over what your individual service plan goals are, and you try to find, and they work with you to find providers that work with you. You have a big behavior support team that helps, that has goals also, and that works on, making sure that you're healthy and happy and your needs are being met, but also some behaviors that might be considered troubling understanding, and trying to find good interventions that meet where a person is. HRC is under that, the Human Rights Commission, where the behavior specialists talk to some outside people. I'm on HRC, I think before this started at LEND, as one of the disability advisors, to make sure that restrictions that are being used are appropriate, and that there's outways, and we're working to meet goals and not just keeping them forever. That goes in with agencies have to track MUIs or major unusual incidents, and that goes into a specific department. They have early intervention, school age support, transition support, employment, community integration support, such as working with agencies. They have a whole list of things. They're starting something called A-Life to also help people find that the SSAs also help with that. They have advocacy, which they have different advocacy groups, whether it's around public speaking, or they have Neighbors in Action, which meets, or they do certain things. You can see Diana Mayrose, who's a paid advocate at Hamilton County DDS and has been there for a while, who I also know well in some ways, because she's a really cool person who is talking with Amber, who's one of the people who leads up that, and the executive director, Leah Schneider. I'm bad at names, so I might have got that wrong. It's in here somewhere. There's also family resources, such as Planning for the Future, or what is it, Future is Now, I think, where they're talking about older caregivers or things. So there's a bunch of different planning sessions for families to think about and be able to, or know what the agency is. I think I sat in on one where they were talking about a billing, like a form process, and some of the things that they were doing where families could ask questions. And Sean Bosick's another good person who does that. They also have provider resources, again, doing training, making sure that providers have to get checked on every few years to make sure they're up to accreditation, knowing what their MUIs and other things. So they do that as well. They also do a lot of, so there you can see some of that. The Future is Now is one of those that goes in the family. Sorry, I'm sort of, Home Think Tank talks about different housing situations that people could be in. There's different provider searches that families can use to see what's out there through your website. They have provider trainings or certificates. They have medical administration. They do a lot of different things, and they also use the DODDs, which is the Department of Developmental Disabilities, search, and then they also have things to make sure that they're also keeping up with transparency, such as an annual plan, report to community, annual report, 3-year strategic plan, informational postcard, people first style guide. And so most of this is, it's a lot of stuff, and I still have to learn a lot more, which is one of the interesting things about this because of how much stuff they do. But I think one of the cool things about being able to do this was getting to learn and meet more people. And also they were lucky enough to, because I couldn't make it in the time that worked with some of the advocacy groups and other people, they recorded me doing that. So hopefully there's a way that will go out to all the different stakeholders, because I have a lot of different stakeholders to want to know about Lend and be a part of Lend and use that for a while. So sorry, I know it's a lot of stuff and I didn't explain it that great. I don't know if people have questions or anything, or
Jason, that was fantastic. It's so thorough. There's an awful lot for you to go over.
there was a
So,
lot. It was like even getting the time to talk to everybody. A lot of it I had to research and do backup just to make sure I knew everything. And I still want to learn a lot more. It's amazing how much the boards do, especially a board as big as Hamilton County, which is is the third largest board outside of the ones, in the surrounding areas. I mean, also do stuff with Warren County and Brown County, which have their own setups. And I looked at it a little bit just to see the differences between some of them.
yeah, we could do an entire, I think, week session, just learning about all the resources that are there. But we really appreciate you giving us a taste of a lot of the different things that they do. It's wonderful. Well, I know that, Becky, I'm sorry if we're cutting into your time. We we have a lot of different projects, as you could see. So I think Christy is not here today. I remembered she's away, but she has a poster as well, it's a wonderful one about transition planning.
And I had shared with her, Lisa, that maybe during one of the closing sessions next week, we'd let her chime in with her what she did.
That would be
Especially 'cause
fantastic.
it was related to aging, and that's not something we
Yes.
cover anywhere else. So
I know it's really
that would be
unique,
good.
and she's spent a lot of time putting that together. So that would be great if she can share that. Okay, well, thanks everyone. I appreciate all of the incredible thoughtfulness and depth and interesting things that you've done this year and sharing it with all of us. So thanks so much.